Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and today we're going to have a look at the various models for the easterly wind that is going to be coming up this weekend into next week. Now all the models have now come on board with colder conditions and with these easterly winds. Now the severity of the easterly winds is still up for grabs, but it is looking very interesting, and it's looking like it could be the coldest weather we've had since the beast from the east, with potential for some very significant snowfall as well. At this stage, I don't expect it to be on the level of the beast from the east. We haven't got that depth of cold, but we still see some very significant impacts from this. And I'll run through the various models now, showing you what the different scenarios are, and then we'll have a look at some very interesting precipitation charts, which I can tell you now are showing a lot of snow for some areas. So first we'll run through the GFS model, which has been very bullish with this cold weather, and it's actually come out on top really against some of the other models, as it did forecast this sort of pattern a good few days ago, whereas some other models were kind of sceptical. But as we run through the GFS, you can see this area of low pressure mills around. It's going to give a big dumping of snow to Scotland, and then we'll look at some weather warnings at the end of the video, and there's some yellow warnings out for Scotland. Could see a lot of snow in some areas over hills and mountains. Could see up to 1 metre of snow potentially. There's a lot of precipitation going to be falling, and especially over the highest peaks, a lot of snow is going to come. But as we move on, the cold air does sink southwards, and then we start to put in this bitterly cold easterly wind. Now you can see cold air does engulf the whole country, and some of the models are allowing some milder air to drift a bit northwards from this area of low pressure. And this is a very interesting setup, because where we have this boundary, we're going to have some weather fronts. It's going to enhance any precipitation coming off the North Sea. So when we do see this boundary of this this milder air and this very cold air, there will be some very significant precipitation, which on its northern edge will be falling as snow. So on this current GFS run, it does provide an absolute dumping of snow for southeast England, and I'll show you the precipitation charts at the end. Now, it's not a forecast yet, it's just a scenario that we have. As you can see, this area of low pressure deepens right off the coast of Kent, providing some very big snowfall, and it would be causing blizzards for southeast England. Some of the heaviest snow we would have seen for many, many years. But again, it's just one scenario. As we move through, we maintain the easterly winds, and this GFS run does go very cold, even towards day 10. We see bringing northerly winds. It would cut off some of the snow further south and open the floodgates further northwards, but areas of low pressure moving around, there would never be precipitation too far away. Before by the end of the run, we start to see low pressure coming over the Atlantic. Because one thing we've got to watch with the models is you see this big lobe of low pressure. That's a big winter storm coming out of America. This blocking is not only pushing cold air towards Europe, it's also pushing this big lobe of bitterly cold air. You can see it very dark, getting out to maybe minus 30 degrees, 850 HPA, hitting parts of the United States. And that's going to power up the jet stream. And you can see the blocking does hold off that area of low pressure towards day 10, before its energy does make its way through and starts to turn us more westerly towards the end of the run. So that's really one we've got to watch. But towards the end of the run, we do start to bring up some more blocking again and start to back the winds back into the east. And that's really just showing you the atmosphere set up for blocking. But this low pressure coming out of America could, put a few cogs in the wheel for this blocking. So again, that's more longer term. That's not going to affect this weekend or early next week, but probably later next week. So in about 10 days' time is when we're going to start to see the effects of that winter storm and how it develops. So we'll really have to watch out for that. We'll now have a look at the GEM model. And again, the GEM model has been a bit flip-flopping, but it's been cold the majority of the runs the last few days, along with the GFS. And it does maintain its cold in this run, pulling in quite cold air from the east. Doesn't pull in those very sustained, bitterly cold easterly winds, but does wrap cold air in the whole country. Doesn't get the minus 10 through everywhere, unfortunately, but gets through or gets through at least to Scotland. But again, coming off the continent, even if it's only minus 5, minus 6, minus 7 at 850 HPA, the dew points would be cold enough, and it still would allow a decent amount of snow, a decent amount of chance of snow. Maybe coastal areas might miss out, but again, it's still one to watch. With this, again, we've got that area of low pressure to our southeast, which could enhance the snow further south and eastwards. And again, the GEM is a very interesting run for snow, and I'll show you that towards the end of the video. Then we have an area of low pressure, channel low, with a milder air to its south. As it runs into that cold air, could bring an absolute dumping of snow for the Midlands, southern England. Looks like the milder air does get towards sort of the M4 lines, maybe a bit for rain on the south coast, but north of that could be an absolute dumping of snow before we turn colder again with a ridge of high pressure. Before the end of the run, it starts to go a bit westerly with that winter storm. So that's really one's going to come cropping up around day 10 in most of these models now. We'll next have a look at the Icon model. Again, we had a look at this yesterday, and it was showing bitterly cold easterly winds, and I can say again, it's showing cold easterly winds towards sort of 144 hours. Bitterly cold air is making its way through the country. -10 line gets in. Now, the area of low pressure is a bit further away from the country, so this would just be relying more on convective showers, which again can produce quite heavy snowfall. But again, it's more localized, whereas if we had more organized area of low pressure, it would be more widespread snow. But again, it still is giving us very cold conditions with the likelihood of still widespread snow showers. So again, it's still showing the blocking and the easterly wind, which is good to see. We'll now have a look at the Ecmwf, which has been the most sceptical model over the last few days. But I can say it has flipped to colder conditions in the last two runs. Last night, in the midnight run, it flipped to colder conditions. I waited to do this video until this evening so we can have a look at the midday run, whether it's sort of the pattern has changed or whether it was just a blip. And I can say the pattern has changed within the Ecmwf, and it is producing an easterly wind. It does be a bit more delayed, but as we head to 144 hours, i.e. Sunday, we're putting in a bitterly cold easterly wind, and we have that area of low pressure to our southeast. It's not as deep as on some of the other models, but again, we'll be enhancing snow showers. You can have a look at that temperature deviation. A good 8 to 10 degrees below average, especially in southern areas. Bitterly cold easterly wind, and then we have an area of low pressure running up against that cold air. Again, could provide big snowfall, and then again that runs further south and eastwards, and we maintain the blocking. And by 240 hours, this winter storm out on the Atlantic is not making inroads into the big block, and we maintain in the -10 line. Now, I'm assuming this Ecmwf is towards the colder end of its ensembles, maintaining the -10 through most of the country for a good 3-4 days, which is really exceptional, and that would be bringing daytime highs of below freezing, so very significant conditions with that Ecmwf run again. So it's really starting to come into fruition, but I can't rule out the potential for milder air to sort of get into, especially into southern areas, but again, that could introduce more precipitation and more snow. So again, it's really one to watch, but it's definitely looking like it's going to be turning much colder this weekend into next week, as with all the models on board. Lastly, we'll have a look at the UK Met Office run, which again, one would argue is the most accurate run. However, we only get access to it from 72 to 144 hours. But again, it is showing colder conditions, and as we head to 144 hours, you can see bitterly cold easterly winds with that area of low pressure towards Kent. That would be enhancing snow showers, and the southeast and east could see an absolute dumping from that. Again, it's a good 5, 6, 7 days out, so it's not confirmed that we could see that area of low pressure provide some significant snow, but it's still really just one to watch. It is cropping up on quite a few models. Regardless of that area of low pressure, I'd still expect there to be a lot of convective snow showers around. So even if that doesn't come to fruition, I still expect quite a few eastern areas to see some snow. But it's interesting to see these areas of low pressure running in off the Atlantic, but on this southerly tracking jet stream, that could again provide some big snow events for southern areas. So they're really one to watch here. We'll now have a look at the GFS ensembles, and we'll have a look at the 858 day temperature and precipitation. Now, the ensembles have been pretty consistent going cold. Now, the current ensemble run, the midday run, has actually trended a bit milder generally on the average on the ensembles, but it's trended longer in terms of how cold it's going to be. So from about 7th to about the 11th, 12th, now it's looking very cold. See, the operational run, which was very cold, bringing big snow, was not an outlier. It was actually in the thick of the colder members of the ensemble. It was about 7, 8, 9, 10 ensemble members getting down to that really cold, sort of -10, -9, -10 degrees at 850 HP, which would be running very cold ice days. There are some milder ensemble members, but again, as we have a look at all the deterministic runs, which are all suggesting now cold easterly winds, I suspect these ensemble members are really just lacking the detail and the computer power really to process that area of low pressure that is dropping through the country. It's a difficult feature to forecast and have a look at. And I'm just assuming that these ensemble members don't have the resolution really to have a look at that. So that's why they are trending a bit milder, as they're not getting that lower pressure through the country, or at least some of them are not. If we have a look at the dew points, which again very symbolic of the air mass, you can see bitterly cold air mass below freezing for a good 4 or 5 days, which would allow most precipitation to fall out of the sky to be snow. If we have a look at the 2-meter temperatures and precipitation, you can see many ensemble members are going down to only 1 or 2 degrees in the day, and you can see the operational run, which again is more high resolution, and yes, it's on the colder end of the ensembles, but it's not an outlier. It's showing about 4 days straight of ice days, with lows going down to -3, -4, and highs around -1 or freezing. So very cold conditions for a good 3 or 4 days there, and it could span even longer as you have a look at some of these other ensemble members. Now again, they are very much outliers, but you can't rule them out at this stage. It's very volatile what's going to happen towards the end of this run. If we have a look at the snow, you can see widespread convective and even some frontal snow showers from about the 6th to around the 11th of February. So a good 4 or 5 days where we have a good chance of seeing snow. So it's looking very good. The areas in the south could be seeing quite a bit of snow. Now again, it's difficult to put details on it, but with this sort of scenario, if you miss out on at least a covering or even just a few snow showers, you'd be very, very unlucky. With this sort of scenario, you'd expect, even though it probably won't be as significant as the beast from the east, you'd expect that sort of widespread snow where a lot of the precipitation falling out of the sky will be snow. So you'd expect most areas, maybe some coastal areas might miss out. But again, it really depends whether we do get that -10 line through, which would allow all precipitation really to fall as snow. Again, I can't rule out there being a bit of rain, but at the moment, looking at these current models, it is looking more and more encouraging every single run. So now we'll have a look at the anticipated GFS and the GEM precipitation charts, which are showing some very exceptional conditions. We'll run through the GFS first. We'll have a look at the shorter term. You can see why there's yellow warnings for snow over parts of northern England and Scotland. Very significant snow. You can see for a good few days non-stop snow over northern Scotland. Some heavy rain in southern England, but it's really that snow over northern Scotland could be very significant. If we look at snow depths, potentially from around 50 centimetres of snow plus. With that, exceptional conditions really. But yeah, and that could really tot up, getting towards a metre by the end of the run. So yeah, very, very exceptional conditions. If we have a look again at the precipitation chart, you can see it's slowly turning the wind into the east, and you start to see colder air sink southwards, and snow showers start to pack into the east, initially further north, but then they get further south. And then look at these weather fronts gathering to our southeast. We've got big snow showers coming in. You can see streamers potentially. And then as we run through, big snow moving into Kent and southeast. And very heavy snow engulfing the whole of the country, or at least most eastern areas. And even parts of southwestern areas, Wales, Scotland, getting some very, very heavy snow. And that would provide very significant conditions. Snowing for a good day almost. This probably will be over egging the widespread nature of the snow, but it could be snowing in some areas for a day, and beyond that, maintaining the easterly winds. And even though the weather fronts sink away, we're still bringing in very cold conditions. And if I run that all the way back to the start, we'll have a look at the potential snow depth. If we have a look, you can see big snow further north, and it starts to sink further southwards. Light coverings from some of the streamers from the easterly winds, and as those weather fronts come up from the south, you can see big snow totals over East Anglia and parts of Kent from those northeasterly winds. Weather fronts come in, and massive snow totals for the southeast of England and East Anglia. Some areas, for example, East Anglia, 40 to maybe 50 centimetres of snow. Parts of Kent, 25 centimetres of snow. And then parts of northern England, Midlands, 20 to 40, maybe even 50 centimetres of snow. And as we run through that, parts of areas north of London, 20, 30, 40 centimetres of snow. And it's not melting anytime soon. So very exceptional conditions with that. At 240 hours, many areas could be seeing a foot or more of snow. So yeah, very exceptional conditions on this GFS run. Again, it's one scenario, but it's just showing you what could happen with this. And again, most areas seeing a covering of snow. Perhaps part of southwestern areas may be missing out. But again, that's on settling snow. I suspect they may see falling snow. And if we have a look at snow risk, if we drop that back, the whole country really seeing a snow risk. Yeah, very exceptional conditions. And then if we have the 0 degree isotherm, you can see the whole country is below freezing. Maybe parts of the southwestern areas, you might have to be 100 metres to be in the very cold air. But most of the country is, the freezing level is at ground level. Very exceptionally cold conditions with this GFS run. Again, it's subject to change, but it's just again one scenario. Finally, we'll have a look at the GEM run. Again, this is one scenario, but it just shows you very cold and snowy conditions over northern England into Scotland. Maybe some big snowfall with that. And then the easterly winds start to pick up into Thursday. Into Friday, we start to pull in colder air further south. Easterly winds with maybe some snow. And Sunday, big snow event potentially in the south on Monday as some weather fronts move in. And then those weather fronts linger, and then we build big snow. Potentially, again, maybe some rain across southern coastal areas. Again, that's always a risk with this sort of scenario. You could be on the boundary of some very heavy snow. Where you are on that boundary, milder air is never far away. So you could be looking at some rain further south, along the south coast. Again, it's only one scenario. It could shift further north, could shift further south, or this low pressure might not exist in the first place. But it's just showing you what could potentially happen. Beyond that, big snow potentially, with easterly winds before the end of the run. It goes much drier. Again, maybe with a few snow showers around before weather fronts start to come off the Atlantic into the cold air. And finally, we'll have a look at the Met Office weather warnings. Look, Monday, rain and snow warnings. Again, as you saw with those precipitation charts, big snow and rain over northern England. Again, maintaining those snow warnings. But already, the Met Office has a yellow warning for snow for Friday and Saturday for the north of Scotland. And if we read into this, it could just show you what sort of conditions we could be seeing, potentially, move further southwards. Above 150 metres, 10 to 20 centimetres of snow is likely. Locally 30 centimetres for 250 metres. Lower levels, where rain is more likely, you could see 2 to 5 centimetres of snow. Again, the snow may be accumulating more towards the Friday, Saturday, and beyond, as cold air sinks south, as they say, and snow will likely fall to all levels. And then, as well as heavy snow, strong winds with blizzard conditions likely. And I suspect this potentially could go up to an amber warning. If we have a look at those GFS and GEM runs, it would be remarkable if those did come to fruition. We wouldn't see a widespread yellow warning and amber warning, and then potentially even a red warning. Now again, I am basing that simply on a couple deterministic model runs that again probably are not going to come, and they're probably both on the extreme end of the ensembles for snow, but it just shows you again the potential that there is with this event. And even though some people say, oh, it's not beast from the east, it's not minus 15 at 850 HPA, even though it's only going to be maybe minus 10, minus 8 degrees at 850 HPA, it still could provide some very significant snowfall quite widely, and it's really just one to watch at the moment. I wouldn't look too literally at those snow charts, but again, it just interesting to see what we could be looking at. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another video.